get started. We're going to talk about personality disorders today, but I'm going to finish up a little bit with PTSD. We didn't quite get through all that on Tuesday. Just some announcements. Believe it or not, we're going to take our second exam in here a week from today. So we get more exams in here, but remember you get to drop one. And I understand from a few people that next week is a popular time for midterms, with a lot of them falling on the same day. So this might be a good time for you to decide you don't want to take this one and drop it in the service of your other exams. We're going to switch things up a little bit. We're going to use the green Scantron. Sorry for the confusion, but there were some problems in grading the red ones, so we're going to use the green ones. Does everybody know what I'm talking about when I say the green Scantron? Yeah. Maybe you're used to using the green ones more than the red ones anyway, right? So we're going to go to use the green ones, so that should make it easier for everybody. I'll bring one, or GSIs will bring one to section to show you what we're talking about. That's what it looks like, though. It's skinnier, it's green in color. So bring that one with you. There's not all sorts of things to color in on that one. You just have to write your name in on it on that one. So this exam is going to have only 22 multiple choice questions. It's just going to cover, oh, here's one, thank you. Here's what a green one looks like. I don't know if you can see it all the way up there, but it sounds like most of you are familiar with them. So we're going to go with the green. 22 multiple choice instead of 40, and now what we're going to have are some essay questions. There'll be 3 of them. You choose 2. These are going to cover the cases that you've been reading about and discussing in your sections. The case of Adrian with generalized anxiety disorder, Pat, obsessive compulsive disorder, Robin, borderline personality disorder. So the cases are going to be what is featured in the essay part of the exam. So you choose 2 out of the 3 to write on that. I'll have more to say about the exam next Tuesday. Yes. Yes, I want you to be specific about what happened to those people, and absolutely, in order to get a good score on those, you have to answer the question in the context of those specific people and give me specific examples from them. Yeah. The sections, the GSIs will tell you more about that in section. Another announcement here, which, Gabby, do you want to come up and say something here? Teach for America, a terrific program. Students from this class have gone on to do that, so Gabby's going to tell you a little bit about that.
Thank you. So Teach for America is a nonprofit organization looking to combat the educational inequity that exists in this nation. And so it recruits outstanding graduates from top universities around the country to work in these low-income neighborhoods. And you could be working in any grade from preschool all the way up to 12th grade in high school. And usually the people who are recruited, they work in the subjects that they studied in college. So the third deadline is on October 25th. There are 2 more deadlines, but the earlier you apply, the more likely you are to get the location that you prefer. And Teach for America also offers a lot of leadership opportunities and just further opportunities in either education or in business for its core members. They have partnerships with a lot of grad schools and with a lot of corporations in America. And while you're working as a core member in Teach for America, you have the opportunity to get your teaching credentials as well as a master's in education during your second year. So if you're interested in changing the education system in this nation, please consider applying. Thank you.
And Gabby has some handouts about it if you want to see her after class. She's sitting right here. So terrific program. All right, quote for the day. We haven't had one of these for a while. Just something to get us thinking about anxiety maybe. And no, not really. It has nothing to do with class. So here it is. Change is inevitable, except for the okay. So PTSD, this is where we ended up. People are slow to get that one, I guess. We didn't go through, these are some risk factors, things that increase the risk. These are not necessarily causal factors, they don't cause PTSD, but having any of these risk factors increases the likelihood that if someone is exposed to a traumatic event, they may develop PTSD. So it doesn't cause, increases the likelihood. That's why it's called a risk factor. So first risk factor being female. So being a woman, girl doesn't cause PTSD, but if you are a woman exposed to a traumatic event, the criterion A of PTSD, you're more likely to develop PTSD than men. Being non-white, also a risk factor. Doesn't cause PTSD, but people who are of other race and ethnicity exposed to a horrific traumatic event more likely to develop PTSD. Less education, people who have less education. Dropping out of school doesn't cause PTSD, even if that might be traumatic, but people who have less education, maybe they're more vulnerable to developing PTSD following exposure to a traumatic event. This might make some intuitive sense. The more severe the traumatic event, the more likely someone is to develop PTSD. So if someone was in a minor fender bender that still could have caused some damage to the car, but maybe no physical or serious physical injury, less likely to cause PTSD than a car accident where there was all sorts of physical injury and possibly even death. Uncontrollability and unpredictability. We talked about these in the other anxiety disorders. We talked about this in panic. True also for these trauma and stress-related disorders. The more unpredictable and uncontrollable a traumatic event is experienced by a person, the greater the likelihood of developing PTSD. So there was an interesting study of activists who were working in Turkey and that were captured by the government and tortured. They were actually less likely to develop PTSD, perhaps because they kind of expected that if they were to be caught, this was what was going to happen. So certainly a horrible traumatic event, but had some predictability to it. Less social support, so people who tend to be more isolated, don't have a lot of friends or family around that can provide some support, close relationships, people to rely on, are more likely to develop PTSD following exposure to a traumatic event. And then finally, just having somebody who, in general, is an anxious person. So people, in the book, in the chapter on anxiety, we talked about some general vulnerability factors, general dispositional factors associated with anxiety. People who, in general, are more anxious are more likely to develop PTSD following exposure to a traumatic event than people who are not, in general, as dispositionally anxious. So these are risk factors. They all increase the likelihood of developing PTSD. Don't cause it. What do we know about causes for PTSD? Well, there have been some neurobiological explanations. A lot of these have been focused on the brain, and in particular the HPA axis. I don't know if you remember reading about that way back in chapter 2. The HPA axis is our biological bodily stress response system that involves the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenal cortex, and a very intricate dance of communication among these structures in the brain and body that revs up into action when our body is faced with stress, releases a stress hormone called cortisol, and this has been an obvious target for study for PTSD and acute stress disorder, given that the cause of those disorders is exposure to a stressor. So something in the stress response here may be related to why some people develop PTSD more than other people. And in particular, this has been studied in many ways more as a maintaining factor than an early causal factor. So people who have been exposed to a traumatic event develop PTSD, and one of the symptoms you remember is re-experiencing that trauma over and over again through flashbacks, nightmares, and the like. And by re-experiencing that trauma, the body can respond as if it was there in the same trauma all over again. So those re-experiencing symptoms activate the HPA axis, and the HPA axis being activated in a prolonged manner is not a good thing because that stress hormone cortisol is released, and when it shouldn't be. There's not the immediate stressful event, but yet your HPA axis in your body is responding as if you are experiencing stress. Cortisol is released, and prolonged release of cortisol can actually do damage to the body, in particular the brain. And the one area of the brain that's been studied a lot in PTSD is the hippocampus. And so some of the research theories and ideas are suggesting that increased activation of the HPA axis, prolonged release of the stress hormone cortisol, actually can do damage to areas of the brain, the hippocampus in particular, and because that's an area of the brain that is rich with what are called glucocorticoid receptors. These are receptors in the brain that are particularly responsive to cortisol. And that damage to the area of the hippocampus it's never going to damage any particular area of the brain. But we see that, for example, in people with PTSD, they have difficulty on neuropsychological tests of verbal memory, more so than visual memory, suggesting that there may be some, and remember the hippocampus is an area of the brain that helps support memory, that may be taking a particular hit. Lots of psychological theories that are covering PTSD. I'll let you read about those in the book. What do we do to treat PTSD? Well, here's what we shouldn't do. EMDR, that is eye movement desensitization. I forget what the R stands for now. But it's basically training people to move their eyes, following a pendulum or something like that. No evidence that that is effective for PTSD. Another treatment not to do is, sorry for the acronym, CISD. That stands for Critical Incident Stress Debriefing. Critical Incident Stress Debriefing. CISD. Big among first responders, police, Red Cross, military. The idea behind this critical incident stress debriefing is if somebody's exposed to a horrible traumatic event, say a bomb explosion, there was lots of death and injury, and people are right in there and experiencing this horrific thing. The idea behind this is that we get all the people, the first responders who were experiencing that, into a room right away, really quickly, and get them to talk about it. Because if they don't talk about it, and they don't talk about it right away, it'll get bottled up, and they'll be just churning inside, and it'll turn into something bad down the line. There's zero evidence that that is effective. It makes maybe kind of lay psychological sense that if you don't talk about something, it's going to come back to bite you. That's not necessarily true. In fact, there's some evidence to suggest that not talking about something in the short term is actually more psychologically beneficial. But the premise behind critical incident stress debriefing is that we've got to get these people in a room and get them to talk about it because that's going to make them feel better. In many ways, that can make people feel worse for lots of different reasons. So first of all, among first responders, say police officers or people in the military, there's kind of a cultural taboo about showing any kind of weakness. And so you're putting people in a room, your superior officers saying, get in a room and just get it out. Let's hear what your experience was. And there are going to be many people in that room that are not going to feel safe to say, that was really hard. I wanted to cry. Because it's kind of a taboo in that culture. I can't show weakness. But you've got your superior saying, well, tell me how you feel. Oh, I feel fine. They're kind of putting pressure on people to talk when they may not feel safe and comfortable to do so. And that's more psychologically maladaptive than letting people talk in a safe space. Also, putting people into a room and asking them to share with one another is not necessarily helpful either. Maybe people don't like each other. They work together, but maybe they don't really also feel safe in that space to be sharing with people. So not effective for dealing with PTSD, even though unfortunately it's still pretty widely used, particularly among first responders. What to do, though, exposure, again, we've heard about this over and over again in anxiety and obsessive-compulsive disorder, and now in the stress disorders. Exposure can be helpful. Often, though, this exposure is imaginal exposure, not actual exposure. You don't need to, for this kind of treatment to be effective, to take somebody back to a war zone or to the scene of a bomb explosion or whatever, a scene of car accident, sexual assault, whatever the traumatic event was. Imaginal exposure and gradually done can be effective. Again, giving people some additional tools to deal with all the things that come up when people are gradually exposed to this traumatic event. And medications, SSRIs, those remember the selective serotonergic reuptake inhibitors, those can be effective. But there's some data to suggest not in the long term, because people, when they stop taking these medications, may relapse. The symptoms of PTSD may come back. So not an effective long-term treatment. Somebody in the front row had a question. I don't know if you still do. You saw the question? It's gone. Okay, yeah. He said, I understand that being in groups may not be a good thing, but isn't there some evidence that processing things is a good thing? That's kind of the essence of your question, right? And it's something that we've all kind of grown up with and thought, of course you have to talk about it. The answer is not necessarily. It depends. For some people, yes, it is. But there are widespread individual differences. Those of you taking personality now with Professor John, that's the whole focus is on individual differences. And for some people, for whom processing things is a good strategy. For other people, it can exacerbate their symptoms. For people that are interested in reading more about this, there's a work of a research psychologist at Columbia. His name is George Donano, who studied resilience. And he's looked at all sorts of traumatic events. What happened in New York on 9/11, SARS outbreak in China, literally all over the world. And the surprising thing from his research is that most people are resilient. They don't need to process things. They will be okay. But some people have a particularly difficult time, a very small minority of people, and in some of those people, repeated processing and talking about it actually exacerbates this. Now, that's not true for everybody. It's a very small percentage of people. But the idea that everybody must process it, and immediately after it happens, it's a size that doesn't fit every person. So it just depends. And that's why in the context of psychotherapy, a responsible mental health professional will carefully assess, do an assessment, remember we talked in chapter 3 about the importance of assessment, to see if that might be a person for whom processing is a good idea. I mean, the term processing itself is kind of generic. What does that mean? Well, that also means different things for different people. For some people, it might mean talking about it and repeatedly. For other people, it might be actually physically going to a place. For other people, it might be some other kind of ritual where they let something go. There's all sorts of different ways that people might process something, and it just varies depending upon the individual. We're going to do a turn now to personality disorders. So we'll start out here with a few vignettes here. So a woman doesn't socialize with other people. She communicates with people at her job, but outside of work, she has no social contact with others. So is this behavior schizoid? Or what about this one? A man becomes upset when his wife rearranges his shirt drawer, does not have dinner ready on schedule, or in any way interferes with his rigidly planned work schedule. Is this considered obsessive compulsive? Or what about this one? A woman is careful to lock her car and house immediately after entering them because she fears intruders. Is paranoid? Why or why not? When would it become paranoid? And one more. A car salesman lies to people to manipulate them into buying a car and feels no guilt about making an unethical sale. Is this antisocial? The realm of personality disorders, maybe more than any other domain that we will talk about this semester, is one of the most slippery, nebulous domains. First of all, when we read about these symptoms, we think, wait a minute, I do that. Or, wait a minute, that's why she's like that. It's the area where we're quick to point fingers at other people and say, aha, I understand you now, you're histrionic. Or, oh my God, you're so narcissistic, you have a personality disorder. And so because we're talking about personality, and so it makes sense to think that this applies to us and to our friends and acquaintances around us. So it's the one area where we're really quick to try to diagnose our friends and neighbors and ourselves. But with just these little vignettes that I'm showing you here, I'm describing what could be a personality disorder, but I can also just be describing typical behavior. So the fundamental question that I'm sorry to report to you, I'll just get to the punchline. Our field is not yet resolved how to distinguish between typical personality and atypical personality. And this is something our field has struggled with for at least 33 years, when personality disorders first received a lot of prominence back in the DSM-3. There's a whole axis back then, if you remember our discussion about changes in the diagnostic system, there's a whole axis devoted to personality disorders that was introduced in 1980 for DSM-3. And there were 10 personality disorders that were unveiled in DSM-3, and there was lots of excitement that finally, with their own axis in our diagnostic system, we've got these criteria that really clearly define personality disorders. We're finally going to be able to distinguish between a healthy, typical personality and a maladaptive personality or personality disorder. This is going to happen. Now, I'm sorry to report, 33 years later, we still can't do it. And we've been through several revisions to the diagnostic system. I'm going to go through this. Unfortunately, it's not the most interesting, perhaps, aspect of personality disorders, but just to illustrate. So let's start with asking what is new in DSM-5. Just released, new at least with respect to personality disorders, just released in 2013. The answer is nothing. Nothing is new in the personality disorders. Absolutely nothing. This is infuriating to many, many people in the field. I mean, there's zero change in the diagnostic criteria. Nothing. I mean, I wouldn't even have to. I could give you the same lecture that I've been giving, for the past year. I've added a few slides by saying nothing has changed. And this is actually in DSM-5. I don't know if you can read that, sorry. But what I've highlighted there is, what I'm showing you is that there's this section in DSM-5 called Section 3, Emerging Models. There's this whole plug for an alternative DSM-5 model, because we need to address the numerous shortcomings of the current approach to personality disorders. Really, I mean, we have had this numerous shortcomings in personality disorders that have been around really since 1980, and there have been some minor tinkering along the way to try to address these. But DSM-5 was released with this in print. There were numerous shortcomings to the current approaches, but yet there was zero change in the personality disorders. Zero. Nope. Still there. I know. Yes, I'm just as surprised as you are, because nothing changed. There were all sorts of, and I'm going to go into excruciating amount of detail about all the things that should have happened that didn't. And everybody was surprised, because there was a major shift that was being proposed to go completely to a dimensional model of personality disorders for DSM-5. The field has been clamoring for it for at least 20 years, and they didn't do it. At the last second, somebody in the American Psychiatric Association, that ultimately is the publisher and makes the decision about this, got cold feet and decided we're not going to make that change. No changes. Now, I should say there was one small teeny change. I mean, maybe it's not that teeny, but we've already talked about this one, and that's goodbye to the multi-axial system. So in 1980, there was a whole axis 2, great fanfare. Finally, people are going to pay attention to personality disorders. Woo! Now that's gone. So none of the disorders changed, none of the criteria changed, but there's now no longer a separate axis for the personality disorders. So remember, we talked about this in chapter 3. Now there's just one really place in the diagnostic system where you put all sorts of psychological and medical disorders. It's not even called an axis anymore. It's just a place that clinicians and researchers are supposed to take note of any psychiatric disorder or any medical diagnosis all together, rather than having that separate axis 2 for personality disorders. So that's really the only change, which is maybe not really, we'll see, and time will tell if that's going to be a big change in the way that diagnoses are made or not. But that in the personality disorders, that's really the essence of the change. And so the issues, the noted shortcomings that is actually printed in the text of DSM-5 persist. And so I'm going to just demonstrate a couple of these here. The first one is overlap between the categories. There are 10 different personality disorder categories, and a lot of them overlap with one another. So in fact, if you receive a diagnosis of a personality disorder, the chances are very, very good that you're going to get a diagnosis of more than one personality disorder. That's very good. 2/3 of people who get a diagnosis of a personality disorder are going to get a second diagnosis. So you have 2 personality disorders. Now, we all have one personality. It's unclear to me how we can have multiple personality disorders. Not to be confused with, sorry for the language here, but there is a whole other category we're not talking about called dissociative identity disorder. It used to be called multiple personality disorder. It has nothing to do with these personality disorders. But the current state of affairs with the 10 personality disorders are, if you're diagnosed with one of them, chances are good that you're going to get a diagnosis of another one. And so let me illustrate this and why that might be. Actually, I'm going to first illustrate just some changes in the criteria, then I'll show you some overlap. So I just picked one. This is schizoid personality disorder. I started with the vignette of the woman who was kind of hanging out by herself, didn't want to be around other people, would be called this schizoid. Well, in DSM-3, when this was first rolled out, these were the diagnostic criteria for schizoid personality disorder. So fairly straightforward. Somebody is cold, aloof. Don't have any tender feelings for other people. They're not really impacted by praise or criticism. They don't have any close friendships, really. But yet these last two are kind of exclusionary things. This is to distinguish this from schizophrenia. They don't have odd behavior necessarily, thought, or anything like that, and they don't have a psychotic disorder. They're just people who are aloof, want to be alone, are indifferent to what other people think about them. All right. So then DSM-3R came out in 1987, just 7 years later, and then all of a sudden there were, a pretty significant series of renovations, I guess if you wanted to call them, revisions maybe of the criteria. So they tinkered with the wording, so some of these were the same, but now they specify how many symptoms you have to have. And now they're adding something about emotion here. So now people don't experience strong emotions like anger and joy. So that was new. I'm not sure where that came from. But just 7 years later, they tinkered with the criteria. So still somebody who doesn't want to be in close relationship, wants to be alone. And now there is indifference still to the praise or criticism of others, no close friends. And the kind of emotional coldness attachment's kind of there, displays constricted affect, but it's not quite the same. I'm going to jump ahead. So DSM-4 came out in 1994, and then the text revision in 2000, actually, not 2004. Here are the symptoms again. I'm not going to ask you to tell me, it's not important for you to understand the differences between